So what was the new formula we learned on how to graph equations? What did it look like? We did it in the last lesson. It's called the slope-intercept form. What does it look like?
Y equals mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b. Where m is the slope of the line, b represents the what? The y-intercept. And x and y, well, they represent any point on the line. That's why we don't put in values for x and y in the equation, because there's infinite points. There's infinite ones we could put in. So we use this to graph lines because, say, for example, if we were given y equals 1 over 4 x minus 2, well, the way that we graphed it is we would plot the y-intercept of -2. That's 1 point on the line. And use the slope 1 over 4 to count out a second point. So that's really what we did when we used this method to graph. But not only can you use this to graph, you can use it to write equations of lines. Okay? I'll wait till everybody gets this down. So how would we do that? Well, actually I can write it, still write it here. If I said the slope is -5, the y-intercept is 4. What's the equation? Y equals -5x plus 4. Use this formula. We don't substitute anything for y. Instead of m, we're told the slope is -5, so we replace m with 5. We don't replace anything with x. And instead of b, we replace it with the y-intercept of +4. So we can see that this formula here, we can use it to graph, or we can use it to work backwards and find equations. Well, we've done the graphing part. We've talked about how to graph equations using table of values, using x and y intercepts, and now using the slope-intercept form. Now we're going to focus on this, okay? Because there are questions where you may not be given the slope directly, you may have to figure it out. Or you may not be given the y-intercept directly, you may have to figure it out. Okay? But this is what we use to find equations of lines. So now I want to go back to this example here. Here we have a line that has a slope of -3, and one of the points on the line, because it says it passes through the point, is -2, 5. You have to write the equation. Well, we know we're going to use this. Okay. And if we have the slope, we plug it in. If we have the y-intercept, we plug it in. Do we have the slope? Are we given the slope? Yeah. So m is -3. So we're halfway there. Do we know the y-intercept? No. Okay. You don't plug the y value. This is not the y-intercept, so you don't plug the y value in here. Okay. So we're going to have to find it. So we're going to have to find b. And what do we use to find it? We use this formula. Because remember, I know the slope is -3, right? Remember I said x and y represent any point on the line? Isn't this a point? So couldn't I plug 5 in here, -2 in here, and then figure out what b is from that? So -2 is what? Sorry, -2 is x. -2 goes in there. 5 goes in there. -3 goes in for m. And it's going to look like this. 5 equals -3. Don't forget this is times -2 plus b. So I'm going to use this point to help me find the y-intercept. So now we just have to solve for this. Well, what's -3 times -2? 6. So 5 equals 6 plus b. How would I get b by itself? Sorry? Divide? Subtract 6. Take that 6 over here. And I get -1 equals b. So I had to use algebra to figure out b. So now I've got the two things I need. Now I'm ready to write the equation. And the equation is going to be y. Don't plug in these values because we're writing the final equation. The final equation doesn't have values for y and x. -3x plus -1 or -1. So with some of these questions, you're going to have to do some work to find what b is and possibly to find what m is before you can write. Because remember, to write the equation, you need to know m and b. Yep. Because this is not the point 0.05. If it was 5, this would have to be the point 0. This is not on the y-axis, right? So we can't just use that. That's a good question because that's a common mistake students make. Okay, let's look at a couple other types. So here, if you know the slope and y-intercept, it's easy. You just plug it into the equation, you're done. Okay, but these ones, you're going to have to figure out one or the other, or both possibly. So, do I know m? Yes, it's 1 over 5. Do I know what b is, the y-intercept? No. So I have to find it. And I use this to find it. Where I can plug in values for y, m, and x and figure out b. So what's a y value I know on the line? -1. I know the slope is 1 over 5. What's an x value I know that's on the line? 4. So we've set it up that we create an equation that we can solve for b. Well, this one's a little bit more challenging because it's a fraction equation. First of all, I'm going to multiply these two into 1. What is 1 over 5 times 4? Or 4 over 1? 4 over 5 plus b. Now what? It's a fraction equation. What did we always do to get rid of the fractions? Multiply everything by 5. So times 5, times 5, times 5. That will get rid of the fraction and make it an easier equation to solve. So 5 times -1 is -5. Times 5 divide 5 cancel each other out. So I'm left with 4. Plus 5 times b, well, we just put that together as 5b. And then again, we solve this equation. So what am I going to do to get b by itself first? Sorry? Subtract 4. You always do the addition or subtraction first. This is standard equation solving. You guys should know this like the back of your hand. So I'm going to minus 4. And I get -9 is equal to 5b. Now what? Divide 5, both sides. And I get b is equal to -9 over 5. Finally, I got my b value. So now we're ready to write the final equation. Y equals, what was the slope again? 1 over 5 x. And what was b we just found? -9 over 5. We're done. Okay. How about this one? This time we're given a graph. And we're shown 2 points on the graph by these dots. Again, what 2 pieces do I need to find? M and B. Well, here's the y-intercept, right? Right here, where it crosses the y-axis. That's going to be a fraction, and I have no idea what that is. So I'm going to have to figure it out using algebra like we've done previously. What about the slope? How would you figure it out? Sorry? Rise over run. From this point to this point, I rise +3. And then I must run +4. So the slope is +3 over +4, which is 3 over 4. But B, I'm going to have to figure out. So I'm going to actually have to find it. And I find B using y equals mx plus b. Well, I can plug in m, because I just found it, 3 over 4. I need a point on the line. Do you know one? Yeah, actually, I know 2 of them, don't I? Does it matter which one you pick? No. Because both of them are going to give you the same answer for B. They have to. Okay. So you can either use the point 3 comma 1, which that one is, or you can use this point, which is negative 1 comma negative 2. I kind of like all the positives. Because generally positives are a little bit easier to work with than negatives. So I'm going to use this point. As I say, positives. Go away. Oh my God. I didn't want to circle that one. Or I didn't want to rectangle that one. This is the one I'm going to use. So what's the y value here? 1. What's the x value? 3. And then plus b. Set up that equation to find b. See if you can get it. Try this one. Remember, 3 is 3 over 1. So 1 is equal to, multiply these two together and I get 9 over 4 plus b. Don't like the fractions. Those will cancel each other out and I'll be left with 4 equals 9 plus 4b. Take the 9 over to the other side by subtracting and I get negative 5 is equal to 4b. Divide both sides by 4 and I get negative 5 over 4 is equal to b. So now I've got my 2. So what does the final equation look like? Y equals 3 over 4 x subtract 5 over 4. Good. So you can see we can still, if we're given the slope and a point, we can figure out the equation. If we're given 2 points, we can figure out the equation. Okay, I think, yeah, this is the last one I want to do today. We'll talk about another way to find an equation of a line tomorrow that involves perpendicular and parallel. So, okay, so write the equation of a line, passes through the points, and then you're just given them. Do I know the slope? But can I figure it out? How? I'm not given the graph, so I can't do rise over run. But I do know how to find the slope a different way when I'm given the points. The slope formula. So we'll call this one x1, y1. We'll call this one x2, y2. So it's going to be -2 subtract -3. -2 subtract -3, which is going to change to plus, over -1 subtract 6. Which gives me what? 1 over, sorry? 1 over -7. Or -1/7. Good. So I had to do some work to find m this time. We're quickly finding out that we're always going to have to do work to find b. And we use the slope-intercept formula to help us find it. So I just figured out that m was -1 over 7. I've got to use one of the points to plug in to help me find b. Which one do you want to use? Sure, let's use this one. So y is -3. X is +6, which remember is the same as 6 over 1. Plus b, and I'm getting that fraction equation again. But we've solved a couple of these already, so we should be fairly comfortable. -3 is equal to, what do I get when I multiply these two into 1? -6 over 7 plus b. Times everything by 7. So in this term, the times 7 divide 7 will disappear. So I'm left with -21 is equal to -6 plus 7b. Next. Add 6 to both sides, take it over there. So I get -15 is equal to 7b. Divide both sides by 7, and I get -15 over 7 is equal to b. So I finally got the two pieces of information I need to write the equation of a line, of this line. So y will equal the slope of -1 over 7 times x plus the y-intercept of -15 over 7. Okay. So like I said, tomorrow we're just going to wrap up. I mean, we could do it today, but it's too much. This is enough information for today. Because I'm going to throw another little wrinkle in tomorrow with parallel and perpendicular lines. So doing it separately, I think, is good. Okay, so for Tuesday,